Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Okay, we have State Representative Chales on with us for the next 55 minutes. He valiantly has exposed the fact that there's a cover-up of what really happened in the Oklahoma City bombing. Since he first really pushed with grand jurors and others to expose that, it's come out that the Southern Poverty Law Center was involved in running the white supremacist compound at Elohim City. They got to get our guns one way or the other, don't they, these America haters? And it's also come out in sworn affidavits in major newspapers that McVeigh was a government operative. We already knew that. And the fact that the building was blown out, not in, and it's just amazing. We covered that in my film, Road to Tyranny. And I want to spend some time at the end of the interview dealing with the new developments there with Representative Key. But about a week ago, we learned the good news. And that dovetails with other states like Arizona, one of the Dakotas, New Hampshire, saying that if a new world order continues or gun confiscation begins or any of this happens, we're going to pull out, we're going to secede. Well, this story was from WorldNet Daily. It was also in some of the Oklahoma papers. Oklahoma to feds, don't tread on me. State House defends its sovereignty from D.C. intrusion. And this is what we need, a declaration that the feds are out of control. I mean, they're federalizing everything with our tax money. They take our money and send a few cents of it back with controls. Steamed over a perceived increase in federal usurping of states' rights, Oklahoma House representatives told Washington, D.C. to back off. Joint Resolution 1089 passed by an overwhelming 92-3 margin. Reasserts Oklahoma's sovereignty under the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and according to the resolution's own language, is serving notice to the federal government to cease and desist certain mandates. The 10th Amendment states, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to by the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. Chales Key, the Republican state representative who authored the resolution, told WorldNet Daily they introduced it because he believes the federal government's overstepping its bounds has put our Constitution and form of government in danger. And so he's the guy that got it passed 92-3. I'd like to know who those three are. And, you know, stuff happened with members of the legislature and with the local mayor where they would say, oh, I don't know anything about a North American Union, and then they'd catch them as signatories to it 5 years ago. So a lot of that has got Oklahomans up in arms. I wish we had people in our legislature like Chales Key here in Texas where they're really raping the daylights out of us, the feds are. But Chales Key, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Hey, it's good to be with you again, Alex.
You've got the floor here for the next 50 minutes. Tell me about the Oklahoma City bombing website, this website, your site, what you're doing. But after you do that, let's get in to this resolution and why it's a ray of hope.
Well, you know this, and just for some of your listeners to know, I'm in my second tenure in the legislature. I had a previous life in the 80s and 90s in the legislature, and I was out for about 8 years, and I didn't really plan on running again, but I did in '06, and here I am. And the reason you had me on the show today, HJR 1089, which is the 10th Amendment resolution, did pass the House this year, but it's not brand new. It's new to a lot of people, but it actually started back in the very early 90s. There was a state senator from Colorado named Charles Duke, and he started it. He gets credited with starting the 10th Amendment resolution, but he and myself back then and a number of other legislators in other state legislatures introduced it in their state legislatures and passed it back then. I passed it in the Oklahoma House back in 1994.
Yeah, let's be clear. You guys passed that and said the UN's not coming in here. We're not putting up with land grabs, and boom, a little bombing happened to teach you to love the feds.
Interesting times back then, and I'd love to take credit for it this time, this year, but, you know, it does have a history that goes back into the 90s, but it's something we must get out there and get every state to pass this same resolution. And I tell you, I've got a lot of legislators that are contacting me and saying they want to do the same thing in their legislature this next year. I've even got some people down there in Texas.
Wow. Now, I didn't know that. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have in front of you who they are?
Have their approval to talk about it on a public broadcast, so just out of deference to them, I think probably better if I didn't mention their names, but I guarantee you there's some real interest in the Texas legislature.
Gotcha. We want to sneak up on them. That makes sense. Tell folks, I've got it here in front of me, but tell them where they can find the resolution to try to give it to their legislatures, and tell us what's in the resolution, why it's so important.
Well, first of all, they could email me at charles.key@okhouse.gov and request, a copy of it. I'd be glad to send it to them. Or they can go to the Oklahoma House of Representatives website. That's real easy to find, and it's a very user-friendly website. And just look up HJR 1089, and you can download your own copy of it.
Tell us about some of the, pun intended, key areas of the legislation.
Well, you pretty much described it in the opening. It just simply reiterates what the 10th Amendment says and says, federal government, get back into your proper role and stop getting into areas that you have no legal authority to be into. And my gosh, the list, we don't have enough time in an hour. We'd have to spend all day long talking about what the federal government's done and venturing into areas they have no legal authority to be into.
But go over some of the most egregious and why your state's upset.
Well, you've got the violations of privacy, the Fourth Amendment, because of bills like the Patriot Act and all the other ones that we've already forgot the names of them, in which they've tried, and they have, I like to say, tried to restrict our rights. Of course, they have, but I happen to be one that I don't believe in saying, well, there they got us again. They've eliminated another amendment. I think the supreme law of the land is just that. It's the supreme law of the land.
I agree. It's still there. Just because they're criminal doesn't mean I'm still not a free human being.
Yeah, just because they passed some bill doesn't mean all of a sudden they superseded it or something. They got rid of it. But, you've got privacy, you've got surveillance, you've got ventures into the area of education. They're telling people what to do and how to educate their kids from Washington, D.C., tying funds to it to try to,
And all the problems started when the feds got involved.
Yeah, it just gets worse. It doesn't get better. Hate crimes. They had a bill this last year that gave a lot of money to hire more law enforcement officers. They don't have any right to be doing that. It's not their role. Their right to be in that particular area.
Well, I hear people all the time on talk radio, even so-called conservatives, say, but it's free money. No, in fact, from what I've seen, federal money is the most, even if you agree with the programs, which we don't, it is the most wasteful. It's our money.
Yeah, you know what? There was an idea that came up back in those early and middle 90s when some of us back then were looking at what we could do to thwart the activity of the federal government in unconstitutional areas. And this idea came up. If anybody's listening out there that might want to pass this on to a legislator or some of the legislators that are listening to this program or people running for office, it is our money, and they're taking it and directing it back to the states with kind of a carrot-stick approach. You do this, we'll give you this money, then once you get hooked into the deal, then they'll take the money away unless you keep doing it and do more.
Yeah, unfunded mandates.
Yeah, what if the state said, okay, look, we're going to start requiring our people within the state to send certain federal taxes to us through the state treasury, and then we'll pass it on up to the federal government. And this is a real good revenue-generating idea, by the way. The states would have some short-term interest they'd make on that money as it floated through, and that might really help some states out. But it would also allow the states to say to the federal government when they start pushing more unfunded mandates and unconstitutional acts to say, well, maybe we won't send that money back up to you. We'll just keep it.
Oh,
maybe
man.
The states need to start doing something like that because it is our money.
Well, it certainly is. What are some other areas that you think are important people know about dealing with the Declaration?
Well, the big issues out there, the big issues that have been talked about for several years, I think it's gotten prominent again this time around because of the Ron Paul campaign, is the money issue, the authority given to the Federal Reserve, private Federal Reserve Bank, to have control over just about every aspect of our lives having to do with finances and money. That is proving and finally proving to be a really big problem. they don't have the authority to do that. It's unconstitutional. And that needs to be addressed.
Well, now they're saying the Federal Reserve's issued so much currency and liquidity that the dollar is going to be like toilet paper.
Yeah, well, it seems to be heading that way. I mean, it's pretty bad right now. What amazes me and really makes me mad is a lot of these talking head pundits and people in both parties that make bukus of money and been living off the system for a long time. They don't have a clue how tough it is for the average middle and lower income person out here trying to get by, and they think everybody's still making a couple of $100,000 or more a year, and everything's real rosy. But the country is hurting right now, and it can get a lot worse, and it might. But that needs to be fixed, and the answer is not to print more dollars up and throw a few, coins back towards the folks with some type of a tax rebate or something.